High five. Great.
Very nice. High five.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning into the podcast. This is Alan,
And this is Chris.
and this is episode 1, or the pilot episode for...
Why do they call it a pilot?
I don't know.
Is it something to do with the pilot light? You know, the fires?
Yeah, no, that's maybe.
Pilot light? Is
I
it
don't
that
know.
a pilot is someone that guides people
Yeah.
and is a transportation
Pilot's
guide?
the first one in the door at the airplane, front of the airplane, leading it? Who knows?
Pilot.
These are the questions of the age. Pilot.
I like it. Okay, let's Google it later.
We should definitely later, we'll Google that. In the meantime, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself for those who don't know you?
Okay, well, I was born and raised in a tiny country called Scotland.
Is that why you sound so funny when you speak?
It's exactly why I sound so funny.
Okay.
I moved to Canada about 6 years ago. I say 6, but I did live in Vancouver for a couple of years before that. So I think I've lived in Canada now for about 7 years in total. I've lived in Calgary for most of those. I love Canada. I love Calgary. I love pretty much everywhere that I've visited in Canada so far. There's not really anywhere I don't like. But I will say that I have been surprised by Calgary. I never intended on settling down here. I lived in a little tiny town called Canmore before I came here. And I met my fiance who was from Calgary, and I ended up moving here. And this is where I've settled down permanently, and I can see myself being here for quite a long time. Obviously, that's when I met my good friend Alan here. We've been friends now for how many years? Like 4, 5?
4 or 5, whatever.
Yeah, about 5, I think.
Yeah.
Probably as long as I've known.
been a
my
minute.
fiancé, yeah. So I ended up here, and I still go back home occasionally to visit to my tiny little town called Shotts. There's people out here that are thinking, I just heard shots on the internet. That has got to be a first. I didn't even think they had electricity there. Like I said, I go back occasionally. It's in between Glasgow and Edinburgh. Not much to do in that town, so anyone that lives there generally goes to one of the two cities. Probably mostly Glasgow, just because the transportation's easier.
And there's a Tim Hortons there, which is important.
There is a Tim Hortons, and can we talk about that? Because that's important.
Yeah, we can get to that.
You want to talk about it now?
Nah.
Okay.
What makes you tick, Chris?
What makes me tick? A lot of things, really. I'm a web designer by trade, but I have a lot of other interests too. I'm obsessed with MMA. That's kind of my passion, or one of my passions.
Are you referring to mixed martial
I
arts?
am sorry, I'm forgetting that some people don't know what that is.
So you like watching scantily clad men rolling around on a canvas,
I do.
Cuddling.
I would
Alright.
say that I love it.
bleeding all
actually.
over each other?
Yeah, it's not something I ever watched in the early stages. I really caught on, I would say late on. But yeah, I love MMA. I watch every event from multiple different organisations. I love sports. And interestingly, I didn't like sport all that much growing up. I wasn't an athletic kid. I was on the B team of you call it soccer, my
Right.
football team back home. I was rubbish at football. My dad didn't really show any interest in that, so I guess as a kid you just don't do if your
Right.
dad's not into it. I don't think he played sport much as a kid either. I had a lot of friends who were really good, but for some reason I just was never all that great. But I got much better at football as I got older. I think in my early 20s I got good just as I moved to Canada for the first time. So sports are the thing. I've become obsessed with golf as well.
Right.
I do enjoy watching sports. I like playing them more. I like your usual stuff like movies, video games, all that. So just a regular guy, really.
Just a regular
regular
fella.
guy with my quirks like everyone else.
Yeah.
And what about you? The people don't know about Alan.
Oh.
Let's tell them.
All right, I'm Alan, and I was born and raised in Calgary. I've moved around a little bit. When I was younger, furthest I ever went was Tulsa, Oklahoma, which I was there for about a year. But I always found my way back to this beautiful city, and I'm very proud of it. Very proud to say that I'm from here. And so You know what gets me up in the morning, Chris?
What?
Is
Tell me.
design.
Design.
I love design. I'm a designer by trade. Web design, graphic design, hell, video design. I don't care. I
Don't
just
discriminate.
I don't discriminate against design. That's kind of what I do. It's my thing. And when I'm not designing, I am maybe at a karaoke bar singing or hosting even. That's a thing that I do as well. Sometimes I even DJ. Design and music is pretty much my identity. They mesh. And otherwise, you might catch me watching an MMA fight or two, because just like Chris, I enjoy watching two grown men, muscle-bound hunks rolling around in each other's blood, sweat, and tears.
And that's just me and Alan.
Oh, parkour as well. Parkour. If you don't know what parkour is, shame on you.
I don't know though. Is it a shame on them?
No, Chris, give them the definition of parkour. This is a funny one.
Just guys jumping about over park benches with fucking finger-toed shoes.
Sweatpants. When you do parkour, you are generally wearing sweatpants. Yeah. Google it. It's pretty interesting. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell, man. I mean, I'm from Calgary. I like design, and I like sports that involve people probably breaking limbs. Yeah.
Those are some good things to like.
Absolutely.
So, why do we do this podcast then?
That's a good question. I think it's because you and I are the smartest idiots around. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, yeah, possibly. Depends on your definition of smart, but
Or idiots, for that matter.
yeah, I think that for some of the interests that we have complete polar opposite interests.
It's true.
So, I mean, we're either reading a Wikipedia article on some kind of geopolitical event, or we're drawing dick pics.
Right? Like not like drawing dicks on things. I think you need to clarify that. Like,
Okay. I'm not tracing a dick
That's-
pic that
yeah.
was sent over Snapchat.
we don't trace dick pics, and we don't send dick pics because that's not gentlemanly. But if you have a takeout tray, don't bring it around me, because I'm gonna scratch a dick into it. You better believe.
Now, I don't think 5 minutes has gone by and we've managed to mention the D.
The D.
This is not a good start, Alan.
Well, so this is just the kind of adventures people are gonna come on with us with this podcast, because I think we are pretty creative, and we can definitely have some intellectual conversations, but we're a couple of the maturity level sometimes is low, and I make no apologies for that, because I'm of the belief that you are only as old as you feel, and even though we're getting on in age, we're in our 30s, yeah. We are also juvenile fucking delinquents. So
In all seriousness, though, we do have some pretty good conversations.
big time.
And we have them between ourselves, we have them with other people, and we thought, why not record them? We can talk about some pretty interesting stuff, some pretty funny stuff, get some giggles in there.
Yeah, insightful conversations with some giggles. Just throw a mic in between us, press record. So that's pretty much where we're at. And for me, this is kind of a stretch. It's a little out of my comfort zone, because I'm pretty shy and I don't like to put myself out there too much. And now all of a sudden I'm being broadcast on the internet, and I'm going to be talking about my own opinions, which can be polarizing perhaps at times. So comfort zone expansion, level up, I guess, for me.
Yeah, and I think we're kind of native to the web. Like, we live the web.
Yeah, it's
live
pretty
and
much
breathe
where
the
we live.
web. We listen to podcasts all day long, and I mean, we kind of measure a podcast by its ability to make you want to go for a beer with the people hosting.
Totally. Like Joe Rogan, for example. I would go for a beer with that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I listen to mostly mixed martial arts podcasts, but
Ariel Helwani, go for a beer
exactly.
with
I
Ariel.
almost did go for a beer with that guy.
Well, kind of, yeah. Or at least you almost said hi to him once. Which are two very different things. Because he doesn't know who you are. But he almost could have. So anyway, that's why we decided to start this thing up. We'll see where it goes. I don't know how we're going to measure the success of it, but I think maybe your accent is going to be the key to that success.
Potentially. It's worked for me in other avenues.
For sure.
Speaking of success, this is a topic that you're interested in.
Right,
You
yeah.
talk to me a lot about this. You've got a lot to say about it. Let the people know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wanted to actually start a podcast a year or two ago about the topic of success, because it's one of those things where you can. It doesn't. Everyone's got their opinions on it, but nobody gets so polarized that they're going to be upset. You're probably not going to be at risk of losing a friendship over, a disagreement in how you define success, because it's, everyone defines it differently, but my opinion on whether or not I'm successful has no bearing on whether or not you have achieved success on your own standards. So it's just a really interesting way to open up to people. And so in that spirit, I'm going to open it up to you, Chris. How do you define success?
Well, I think that if you asked me a while ago, I would have told you or given you the typical answer, and that is to say that I would like a better paying job, a bigger house, a better car, because I think that in Western society anyway is kind of what's deemed as success,
Right,
in a lot of cases.
The materialistic side.
Yeah, the materialistic side. But I think now the way I look at it is how happy you are with your life. The feeling of satisfaction, I guess, in your everyday life.
Right.
So I'm probably happier, and in fact definitely happier now than I've ever been. So I would say that makes me successful.
Sure.
And there's not much more that I want in life, material or otherwise.
Right.
So now that I've reached this point, I feel like I could die today and I could look at back in my life as an angel,
As an
obviously,
angel. Of course, you're going to heaven for sure.
and I would be happy with what I had achieved.
Right. So let me pose this question to you then. Let's say you don't die, and instead you carry on living, which is probably more likely to happen. Let's be real. What happens next? What happens if, say, you, and let's hope this doesn't happen, but if you lose your job, or your income goes away, or your health goes away, like, what do you do? Or maybe none of that happens, and how do you continue to find success?
Yeah, I think it's just human nature to want more, and that point will come for me eventually. And I think it's all about creating new challenges for yourself, or new goals, setting new goals and achieving those goals,
Right.
big or small. And I know that you're big on that. You have so much stuff on the go at any given time, and even though you would be relatively happy with your life at the moment, you're always looking for other ways. I know that about you. That would be one way I would describe your character.
Right, yeah. Kind of too much on the go at
Too
any
much,
given time,
yeah.
probably. Yeah. I feel like we're kind of on the same boat in terms of success on that front, because I always look at it as sort of a scale in growth. Like what have I done, let's say, this year that I didn't do last year that I've improved on, and whether that's I've developed a new skill, or I've developed a new hobby, or maybe I've just achieved a milestone in my career. It's always kind of, I want to be able to look back at where I came from every step of the way and see the growth and that progression. And I think with a mindset like that, as long as you're open-minded and diversify your interests and your skills, you'll always grow. And so for me, as long as that growth is present, then I'm successful. Now, I also happen to define success by, financial means as well. And I wouldn't say that I'm motivated by having, more stuff or the nicest stuff even. For me, it's just more, I get a satisfaction out of, to use the term, bringing home the bacon or whatever, because I look at things, I have a very sort of like evolutionary biology mindset with pretty much everything in the world. I always kind of look at it through that lens, and I see back when human beings were cavemen and we were fighting saber-toothed tigers off and having to find shelter and clothing and food, you had to work for a living either by foraging or by hunting and gathering or setting traps or whatever the case may be in order to maintain your survival. And, in the modern context where we live in a capitalist nation, you bring home that bacon by having a job or having an income. And so as long as I am able to provide for myself and not living paycheck to paycheck, I think I've kind of defined my success that way. So for me, it's not always going to be necessarily about the dollar amount per se. Although obviously, more money is, I'm not gonna complain if I don't have more money next year than I had this year, right? But money isn't always the motivation. However, that being said, it's still nice to have enough money that you're not trying to juggle, like, which bill am I gonna pay this month? Which bill can I skip? So there's that. When you reach a certain level of financial success, that you're free to go out and have a steak dinner, or buy a fancy new microphone to record a podcast on, and not have to worry about how much deeper in debt you're putting yourself. But it's funny because how you and I define success, I have friends who just shake their heads. Chris and I work in an office, and we're quite happy to do that all day long, sitting in a nice heated building. We're not shoveling coal, and we're not exposed to the elements. We're not dealing with bitchy customers in a retail environment, right? Some would say that we're sellouts and we're working for the man. And, and I'm fine with that. But other people look at that and they think these guys are idiots and they're not understanding the meaning of life. And the meaning of life is to travel and to experience things. And I define success by how many countries I've visited this year. And if that's what motivates you, that's cool too, I think there's no wrong answers when it comes to how you personally define success. As long as you're achieving it on your own terms, nobody else is getting hurt by it. And there's a conversation to be had about corporate greed and capitalism and the evils and whatever, but that's for another day. But yeah, I love broaching the subject because it's so interesting.
Yeah.
And everyone you talk to has their own opinions on it.
So, speaking of success, I think that Scotland have experienced a success recently. More specifically, Glasgow.
Oh?
Yes, this is very serious.
Did they finally achieve independence from the English?
Close.
Bastards.
Close. They got their very own Tim Hortons coffee shop. Now, this was the primary reason for me wanting to do a podcast, was to tell people how much I love fucking Tim Hortons tea.
Wait. So all of that mumbo jumbo about us being some intellectual powerhouses was bullshit?
It was mainly to suck them in, make them think that we know what we're talking about, then hit them with the Tim Hortons.
Okay, so is this like a plug for Tim Hortons?
No, not at all.
So we're not getting paid for this.
Not getting paid for this.
Fuck.
If they did want to throw some bones our way, we'll take them.
Yeah, free steep tea for a year.
Because I'm about to big them up. Something stupid.
Okay.
Let me tell you about a joy in my life.
Is it? All right, yeah, I'm ready.
Now, every morning, as you know, we get a Tim Hortons. And specifically, a tea. A Tim Hortons steep tea.
Steep tea. This is different than the tea that comes in a bag.
I don't know why. I don't know how they make it. That's part of the magic.
Well, it's steeped somehow, but
they
all
steep
tea
it.
is steeped. But
now, I've been drinking tea my whole life.
Right.
And when I say tea, I'm not talking about Earl Grey or green tea or whatever fancy stuff you've got going on over here.
A little bit of Lapsang Souchong.
In fact, the first time I drank tea in Canada, someone asked me, what kind of tea do you want? And I said, tea. And they said, orange pekoe? Do you want a black tea, a green tea? And I'm like, tea.
Because in the UK, it's all tea.
In the UK, tea is tea.
Right.
And you can pick up fancier teas if you like, but when someone says you want a cup of tea,
it's
kind of known and assumed by everyone that you just want what you call an orange pekoe black tea.
Right.
So it was always difficult for me to find that kind of tea over here that tasted the same. So I could find an orange pekoe tea. You even have Tetley tea bags over here, which is a very common brand back home. But for some reason, the teas just never tasted the same. And then whenever I go back home to visit, I have tea and I have maybe 6 cups a day because I love it. Mm-hmm. It tastes different.
Yeah.
And I miss it. But I recently discovered Tim Hortons steep tea. Well, I say recently. A few months, say. And I've become absolutely addicted. And speaking of success, my life is now in a better place and I'm now more successful as a result of having found Tim Hortons.
As a direct result. Now, I remember telling you about Tim Hortons steep tea, and you did not believe me when I said it was amazing, because you said that, and I don't want to paraphrase you, but I'm going to anyway. Oh, my name's Chris, and I think Tim Hortons is rubbish, and I think everything they make is crap, and I can't even believe you ate there. Blah blah blah. The coffee's shite. And then I'm like, Christopher, have you tried the tea? Because it's something else. It's
I I don't think that's paraphrasing. I think that's verbatim what I
That
said.
may have been verbatim, but with a cooler accent than the one I just emulated.
Well, I'm sorry that I didn't take you up on your advice back then.
Well, you did. It just took a little bit of persuasion.
Yeah, but it is a game changer. Really,
is.
I mean, I used to drink Starbucks every day. I'd spend $5 on a single latte.
Right.
I'd sometimes get 2 a
Multiples a day.
I mean, I was spending sometimes upwards of $300 a month just on Starbucks lattes. Tim Hortons, extra large size, $2.10.
Yep.
Can't beat that.
Can't.
And I'll maybe still have a couple a day, but
Right.
still a lot cheaper than Starbucks, and
sure.
I enjoy it a lot more.
I think my record is 3 extra larges in one day. And let's be real, I could do that all day, every day.
All day, every day.
And now your brethren in Glasgow are able...
Well, that's exactly what I'm wanting to bring up. The people of Glasgow now get to enjoy this.
Now, do we know if the Tim Hortons in Glasgow serve steep tea?
Well, you would think that their offering would be much the same.
You
would hope so, but then sometimes you go to McDonald's in
Right.
Spain and the
Right.
chicken nuggets taste weird.
I went to McDonald's in Hong Kong, though, and I expected to find like weird octopus burgers and stuff, and it was pretty much like what you'd expect.
Oh.
Although they had waffle fries, which was cool. But yeah, so maybe it's the same. And actually, I heard they opened one up in Cardiff, Wales.
Cardiff, yes.
Yeah, just
yes.
recently.
England aren't adopting it because, I mean, the English and the Queen, they think that their tea is better.
I am a queen and I'm a fanny.
I don't need Canadian teas.
They're inferior to my royal hiney. I'm the queen.
Can we go to jail for this? I don't know.
I don't know.
I hope not.
I mean, you can't burn like any legal tender with the Queen's head on it. But I think slander is
Slander's okay.
just fine.
Well, okay. And I actually have nothing against the Queen. I'll just put that out there. But it's really funny.
That escalated quickly.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you are in Glasgow or if you're going to be visiting Glasgow anytime soon, make sure you hit up a Tim Hortons, even if you're a Canadian. If you're a Canadian, you're probably going to want to go there anyway,
Well,
just for some home comfort.
I know that I will be.
You will be. And we're actually getting married in Glasgow.
Well, hold on. We should
No,
clarify.
no.
You and I,
Whoa.
we're not getting
Let's
married.
just calm down there.
Oh.
We're not getting married.
Chris is getting married to a nice blonde girl who isn't me.
Yeah,
I just want
definitely
to
not
make
you.
sure that that's put out there. But
Yeah.
I'm going to be attending your wedding in
He will
Glasgow.
be attended. So hopefully the Canadians get to get a Tim Hortons over there in Glasgow, and then some Scottish people are exposed to what I enjoy every day.
Yeah, and I'm gonna make sure when I go over there that my hotel is within walking distance to that Tim Hortons, because I am absolutely going to need steep tea to power my day.
You know, I'm just thinking back on these last 25 minutes or so, or maybe even more. It has been me interjecting occasionally to agree with something.
Right.
You going off on this really big intellectual spiel about
I don't know
success.
about that, but okay.
And then me talking about steep tea. Who's the smart one here?
Well, I also admitted to drawing dicks on things, so I think the jury's out on this.
Okay, we're even. Let's call it even.
Yeah.
So, one thing that we were hoping to do with this podcast was to provide one recommendation each. every episode.
Sure.
Doesn't need to be anything in particular, just something that you've enjoyed recently, whether it's a movie, a TV show, some food, a restaurant, an experience of some sort. What do you got for me? Putting you on the spot.
All right, well, I have a recommendation. It is a beverage, and it is not steep tea, although that kind of by default is the recommended beverage all day, every day. Steep tea from Tim Hortons. Again, this is not a plug. It's just our honest opinion. We just love the shit. I am a fan, Christopher, of the distilled spirits.
I'm aware.
Yeah. I'm particularly fond of Scotch, and I'm sure you're familiar with where Scotch comes from. A fun fact, people. Chris doesn't like Scotch. He's from Scotland and he doesn't like Scotch, or really any alcoholic beverage that isn't Fruity.
Do you know how often... Come on. How often I have to explain myself. Quite often when people find out I'm from Scotland, which is usually after about 10 seconds, they ask me what my favourite Scotch is, or they'll tell me about their favourite Scotch, and then I have to tell them that I don't like it, and it's really embarrassing. And you know, I wish that I could just suck it up and just at least pretend that I like it, and maybe if we were out somewhere and they buy me a drink, I'll just knock it back and just pretend that I like it, but I can't even do that. I went on a whiskey distillery tour, Talisker. Actually one of the whiskies that Alan really likes, and I couldn't even stomach the smell of the whiskey at the beginning. I thought they would give you a drink, like a wee dram at the end, but they actually give you it at the beginning. Anyways, I couldn't even smell it, never mind drink it. So I absolutely hate the stuff.
Right.
They talk about your taste buds changing over time, and that the older you get and the more you try it, the more you like it. I can't even put it in my mouth in the first place, so there's no chance of that ever happening.
Right. Which is it's just a shame, because Scotch is one of the best things in my life, which maybe isn't speaking very highly to my life unless you really like Scotch, and then you know what I'm talking about. And so my recommendation for this week is the Laphroaig Quarter Cask Scotch from the Islay region of Scotland. And here's why. It is super smoky, which is a flavor profile that I really like out of Scotch. I think that's probably my favorite flavor profile, actually, for any distilled spirit. And the quarter cask, because I don't know if you are familiar with how the aging process works with distilled spirits, whiskey in particular, but they distill them and then store them in barrels for a long time. And while that spirit is in the barrel for years and years and years, it kind of takes on the oaky characteristics of the barrel it's stored in. And because it's a quarter cask, that means it's a smaller cask. So there's more of an oaky surface to spirit ratio. I realize I sound like a total nerd right now, but needless to say, the flavor profile becomes that of a really oaky and earthy beverage that I would recommend drinking straight, because if you put ice in your Scotch, and I know this is a matter of personal preference, but I think you should be slapped, because but that's just me. And you know, some people will be like, oh, you have to put a drop of water in to open up the bouquet. Shut up, drink it straight from the bottle like a goddamn man, is what I say.
You know, I've got a funny story as it relates to Scotch. We are organising a wedding right now, although I have the audacity to say that. I haven't organised shit.
Right.
The fiance's done it all. Everything, from the biggest detail to the small detail. It's better just to get out their way, I'm learning. Anyways, she was talking to the wedding organiser, and we were thinking about doing a whiskey tasting at the wedding. So having various types of whiskies from different regions, and having people try them and rate them, whatnot. And obviously being in Scotland adds to it all. So she had emailed this wedding organiser, and she had used the term Scotch tasting. And because we live in Scotland, we don't call it Scotch, we just call it whiskey.
Right. She
Came back and asked my fiancé if it was some kind of sit-down dinner.
Oh, no. Yeah.
So anyway, if you're ever going to Scotland, don't call it Scotch, because they probably won't know what that means.
No, you're probably better off just like, I'd like a Highland single malt, please.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So, my recommendation, You know, I don't want to have to do this, but I'm going to go with a video game.
Are you? There's a shocker.
I know, it's a bit stereotypical for a boy, but
No, you're a man.
I'm a man now. I'm a man now, so I do what I want.
I'll do it alone.
So there's a game that I've been playing recently, and it's not a game the type of game that I would normally play. I'm all about the action games. I like sports games. I like shooting games. This one's called Horizon Zero Dawn, and everyone that has played it that I have spoken to thinks it's one of the best games that they've ever played. It is this kind of role-playing, third-person adventure game. And I'm learning that as I get older, I don't have any time for online gaming anymore. I would say that I was on board with the online gaming back when it just started, even, I don't know, 10 years ago, more than that.
Right.
I was playing on the PC, I was hardcore into it. Now I just don't have any time for it. Those kids spend 10 hours a day on that, Call of Duty, all the games like that. And try and play against them, you just got no chance. You just spawn, die. I know a lot of people don't care about video games, and that's fine. And I'm not going to try and sell it to you too much, but for me, it's like a controllable movie is the best way I can describe it. There's a great storyline. Seems a bit dumb if you read maybe the back of the game.
Right.
But if you get into it, it's just excellent. The graphics, it's probably the best looking game I've ever played.
Okay.
The mechanics are awesome. And it's just a solid game all round, and I think it's had great reviews pretty much everywhere.
Well,
so
yeah, you haven't shut up about it since you got it.
I know, I keep encouraging Alan to get it, but he's too busy playing an old game from the 90s or whatever. So if you see Horizon Zero Dawn on sale, pick it up for sure.
And what platforms is this game available for?
I don't think it's actually available on the Xbox.
Is it not?
No, I think it's exclusive to the PS4.
So presumably PC gamers won't be able to...
I don't think so. Don't quote me on that.
You can Google it if he's wrong.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty certain that it's not available on Xbox.
But basically the key takeaway from this entire podcast is, in order to be successful, you should play Horizon Zero Dawn while drinking Lefroy Quarter Cask. I think of all.
That sums it up.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that's it then,
Yeah, I guess so.
for the first episode.
First one.
I mean, we got serious for a bit there.
We got silly for a little bit.
We got silly for a little bit. And that's the beauty of it.
And you'll never know that we're not wearing pants.